The dusty track was a blur under the hooves of Bolt, my beautiful horse, and my heart was thumping in my chest from the sheer adrenaline. I am Matilda, a 16-year-old girl who has lived on my grandparents' farm for as long as I can remember. In that moment, the only thing in the whole world that mattered was reaching that finish line. I leaned forward, whispering to Bolt to give me just a little more strength. When we finally crossed it first, a rush of pure joy swept over me. We had done it again. A bit later, I was back at our farm, still wearing the floral wreath they give to the winner. I felt so proud, walking my horse toward the stables with one arm, while tucking the prize check tightly under the other. This was actually our third win in a row. I looked down at the check and couldn't help but smile. It wasn't a huge amount of money since it was just a local rate, but for my grandparents and our small farm, every cent mattered. I felt a sense of relief knowing this would help them out. As I led Bolt into the shade of the stable, the smell of hay and old wood filled the air. I squinted my eyes, grinning at him, and rubbed his head to let him know what a great job he did. He really was a hero to me. But then a man's voice from behind me startled me. He was standing there, observing my horse and commenting on how he was a tall stallion with a glossy coat and a well-mannered temperament. I immediately felt a surge of anger. I assumed he was just another pushy horse dealer who had followed me home to try to buy my best friend. Without even thinking, I grabbed a handful of dry hay. I spun around and hurled it right at him. I told him to go away and that I didn't want his stinking money because Bolt was absolutely not for sale. At that moment, my grandpa appeared with a deep frown on his face. Grandpa is a kind, hard-working man who has raised me since I was a baby. He scolded me, telling me that was no way to speak to our guest of honor. I was so confused. Grandpa turned to the man and apologized for my behavior. He told the man that I can be a bit of a firecracker sometimes, but that's just how teenagers are. Then, he mentioned it was dinner time and invited him to join us for a home-cooked meal, leading him toward the house. I just stood there, watching them walk away, wondering who on earth this guest of honor could be, and why he was at our simple farm. I followed them into the house, still feeling a bit uneasy. As we sat down for a simple meal in our small dining room, the truth finally came out. I nearly choked on my food. It turns out the man I had thrown hay at was Mr. Allen, the chairman of Allstellar Inc. Corp. This was the man who provided the annual sponsorship that kept our farm running. I felt my face turn beet red, and I couldn't stop apologizing for being so incredibly rude earlier. He just grinned at me and told me not to worry about it, saying he actually liked my spirit. He explained that he had come to check on the farm and happened to see the rate. He even complimented my riding, saying not many people could handle a wet track at that speed. My grandpa's voice got a bit heavy and sad then. He told Mr. Allen that they worried about me skipping school to compete in dangerous races, but I always insisted on it because I wanted to help my only remaining relatives. Mr. Allen looked at me thoughtfully for a moment. Then he made an offer that took my breath away. He said the sponsorship for the farm would stay the same, but he also wanted me to move in with him so I could get a proper education. I couldn't believe my ear. I gasped and asked who would take care of my grandparents if I left. My grandma smiled sweetly. She told me they were still healthy enough to run the place. Grandpa advised me to take the chance since opportunities like that don't come twice. But I couldn't leave my horse behind, so I asked about Bolt. Mr. Allen promised I could bring him along to his small horse farm. He said I could help out in the stables to cover my school fee. Just like that, it was settled. 1 week later, Mr. Allen sent his driver to pick me up, and that was the moment the new chapter of my life truly began. As the car turned into his property in the suburbs, I pressed my face against the window and my jaw nearly dropped. Mr. Allen had described it as a small horse farm, but this place was absolutely enormous. On one side there was a grand mansion, and on the other a massive stable. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a girl about my age rushed toward me and pulled me into a big hug. She sounded so excited as she welcomed me and told me that she was Judy, my new sister. I greeted her back with the widest smile because she seemed genuinely sweet. She led me over to the front porch. Allen and a woman were waiting for me. I assumed she must be my new mom, but as I got closer, she gave me the strangest look. She looked completely stunned for a few seconds, as if she had seen a ghost, and then her face suddenly turned cold and emotionless. Before I even had a chance to introduce myself, she just turned around and walked into the house. I stood there feeling a bit confused, thinking that maybe she just wasn't feeling very well. That evening, I sat down for my first dinner in that giant house. The kitchen was beautiful, and the meal was the most lavish thing I had ever seen. I sat right next to Judy, while Mr. Allen and his wife sat opposite us. Mr. Allen and Judy were in such high spirits, and they seemed genuinely fascinated by my life back at the farm. Judy, especially, kept peppering me with what felt like 10,000 questions. I had to laugh because she was just so curious about everything. At one point, Judy hesitated a bit and asked if it was really true that I had never never seen my parent. A wave of sadness hit me, and my voice got a little quiet as I told her the truth. I explained that my father had passed away in an accident before I was even born, and then my mom had left me when I was just a tiny infant. Judy reached over and gently put her hand on my shoulder to comfort me. Mr. Allen gave me a warm smile and told me that besides my grandparents, I now had a second family. He said I had a sister, a new dad, and a caring mom. He even put his arm around Mrs. Allen's shoulder and looked at her, expecting her to agree. Suddenly, Mrs. Allen flinched and dropped her fork with a loud clang on her plate. I leaned over right away, feeling worried, and asked if she was okay, calling her mom. But to my absolute shock, she just yelled at me, telling me never to call her that. I felt so flustered and embarrassed that I just stared down at my plate. I wondered if I had done something terrible. Everyone else at the table looked just as startled as I was. Over the next few days, I really tried my best to get closer to her, but she was always so cold. One afternoon, I saw her resting outside on a lounger in the shade. I thought it would be nice to bring her an iced coffee. As soon as she saw me coming, she pulled her hat over her face. She pretended to be asleep, just so she wouldn't have to talk to me. Another time, I tried to compliment her dress, but she just made an annoyed sound and walked away. It felt useless. She clearly hated me. Luckily, I still had Judy and my new dad. Judy kept telling me that her mom was actually a good person and just needed more time to get to know me. Mr. Allen was amazing too. He sent me to a top-tier school and really encouraged my love for horses. We spent so many fun afternoons together watching horse races and even placing small bets on the winner. One day, while watching the horses gallop past, I started thinking about what it would be like if Bolt and I were out there on that track. I imagined winning a huge prize and sending it back home to my grandparents. I couldn't get the idea out of my head. So on the way home from the races, I asked my dad if I could compete. He didn't even hesitate and told me we should definitely give it a go since I had so much talent. I was so excited. My foster dad felt like the best man in the world. I was determined to make him proud. Right after that, he hired a personal coach for me, even a whole team of trainers and groomers just for Bolt. I had never been happier, and Bolt had never looked so healthy and strong. Everything was great, except that Mrs. Allen still seemed to have an issue with me. Whenever I packed my gear for practice, she would frown and mutter things under her breath. I started to wonder if she was just bitter that an adopted kid like me was getting so much attention and resources. But honestly, whether she liked it or not, I knew one thing. With my talent, I was going to be a brilliant rookie in no time. One morning, right after I finished my practice session, Judy came up to me with excitement. She asked if I could teach her how to ride a horse. I felt a bit hesitant, and I told her it might be a little scary for someone who had never done it before. I wanted to make sure she was really sure about it. She looked at me with such a hopeful face and pleaded with me, saying she just wanted to learn so she could spend more time with her dad, just like I do. Looking at her, I couldn't find it in my heart to say no. I helped her up onto Bolt's back and showed her how to grip the reins and give a few simple commands. Things were actually going really smoothly at first, but then, out of nowhere, Mrs. Allen appeared. She started shouting at the top of her lungs. She demanded to know what we were doing and told Judy to get down that very second. The sudden noise startled Judy so much that she lost her balance and tumbled right off Bolt, landing hard on her arms and knees. Mrs. Allen shoved me aside so hard that I fell right back onto the ground. She knelt down to support Judy, then turned her head to glare at me with so much anger in her eye. She screamed at me, asking if I had any idea how important legs are to a ballet dancer. She demanded to know if I was trying to ruin Judy's future on purpose. Before I could even open my mouth to explain or apologize, she called me an incompetent kid and told me to get out of her sight. I felt a sting of resentment. It was just a few scratches and bruises. I didn't get why she was being so dramatic. I decided right then that I would show her exactly what this incompetent kid was capable of. From that day on, I put everything I had into my training. I got my head in the game and started winning several small and medium prizes one after another. I sent most of the prize money back home to help my grandparents with the farm, and I kept a little bit to buy nice things for Judy and me. One day after dinner, my dad called me into his office. He told me that the two biggest races of the year, the Grand Shields and the Royal Silverford, were coming up in just 2 weeks. He had already gone ahead and signed Bolt and me up for both of them. I felt a knot in my stomach because those races were only 1 week apart. Bolt had been looking pretty worn out after our latest competition, and I was worried that pushing him like that would be way too much for him to handle. I tried to explain my concerns to Dad, but he was completely adamant. He insisted that Bolt was strong and would be able to manage just fine. I was stuck in a tough spot. I really didn't want to let Dad down after everything he had done for me, but I didn't want to risk hurting my horse either. I told him I needed some time to think it over. As I stepped out of the office, I gave a petrified jump because Mrs. Allen was standing right there, Immediately, she grabbed my arm and yanked me into another room. She told me in a cold voice that I couldn't compete in those races. They were nothing like the amateur events I was used to, and I wasn't good enough. According to her, I was only going to embarrass the family. I felt a wave of anger wash over. I asked her if she had been eavesdropping on my private conversation with my dad. I looked her right in the eyes and told her that since she wasn't my mother, she had no right to tell me what to do. I made it very clear that I was going to join those races no matter what she thought. Then I stormed out of there, my heart racing with frustration. Early in the morning, on the day of the first big race, I headed down to the stables to check on Bolt. I wanted to make sure he was ready and calm. But as I got closer, I saw two of Alan's servants sneaking out of the stable area. It looked really suspicious, and I wondered what on earth they were doing there so early. I hurried inside to investigate, feeling a knot of worry in my chest. I walked up to the stall to pat my horse, but I stopped midair. My heart nearly skipped a beat. This wasn't Bolt. It was a different horse that looked a lot like him. I felt panic and anger, wondering what Miss Allen had done with my horse just to stop me from racing. Right at that moment, Mr. Allen walked in, accompanied by the vet. I quickly told him what I had just discovered. His face went pale with rage. In a sharp voice, he muttered that he couldn't believe that woman would dare to get in his way. He looked like he was about to explode and said he'd make sure she paid for what she did. Then he turned to me and told me to leave it to him and that he would find Bolt. He told me to go get some rest and focus on preparing for the race. I had never seen him so stern and intense before, so I just nodded. Still, I couldn't help but feel deeply concerned about what was happening. Despite all the crazy drama with the horse swap, I somehow kept my focus and brought home the Grand Shields Championship title. It was a huge deal. I would have been over the moon. But I couldn't fully enjoy the win because something was eating at me. Mrs. Allen had been missing from the house for the last 4 days. I couldn't help but worry if my dad had actually followed through on those scary things he said in the stable. One afternoon, Judy and I were sitting outside, quietly sipping on some tea. I tried to sound casual as I asked her if her mom had mentioned going anywhere. Judy looked at me and explained that her dad told her Mrs. Allen had been under a lot of stress lately. Because of that, he had arranged for her to stay at an aunt's villa to get some rest. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me, thinking that his earlier anger was just him blowing off steam. With that worry out of the way, I could focus on my main concern, Bolt. Ever since that last race, his health had clearly been going downhill. He seemed so exhausted. Even though the vet kept insisting he was doing just fine, I could hear how heavy his breathing was. I knew deep down that something just wasn't right with him. A week went by, and suddenly it was the day of the second big tournament. I was in the stables watching the vet do a final check on Bolt. My dad suddenly pulled me outside. He looked me straight in the eyes and told me that we absolutely had to win today's match. He said he was expecting a lot from me, and his tone was so intense it gave me a bad feeling in my gut. I didn't know why I felt so uneasy, but I just nodded and assured him I would do my absolute best out there. We were at the race course, and the air was thick with the smell of damp grass and the noise of the crowd. I was in the starting area, trying to calm my racing heart. I felt ready, but then I saw Judy running toward me. She looked completely panicked. Her face turned pale. She rushed up to me and whispered that her mom hadn't gone on a trip at all. Instead, my dad had locked her in a storage room because she found out he was doping Bolt. I stood there, completely stunned, trying to make sense of it. I thought back to the vet who had been around Bolt earlier and realized that must have been when they were drugging him. It felt impossible. I told Judy that it didn't make sense because I thought Mrs. Allen was the one who wanted to harm us, not my dad. But Judy shook her head and told me that her mom had only swapped Bolt that other time to protect me from whatever was happening. Before I could even process any of this, a burly man appeared out of nowhere. He clamped his hand over Judy's mouth and dragged her away. Suddenly, Mr. Allen leaned in close. He whispered in my ear, telling me there was only one game left. He warned me to keep my mouth shut and do my job properly. If I lost, he would make things very uncomfortable for my grandparents. He ordered me to get on the horse immediately. I climbed onto Bolt, but a chill ran down my spine so cold that I felt like I was going to vomit. I couldn't believe the man I had looked up to as a kind father figure was such a fraud. As the starting signal rang out and the other horses bolted forward, my mind was racing. I knew I couldn't let that wicked man win, so I just closed my eyes and stayed put. I didn't move an inch. Mr. Allen started screaming, yelling at me to run and asking what I was playing. He looked like he was losing his mind as he rushed toward me. But just as he got close, a race organizer stepped in. They told us that they needed to take Bolt for an immediate health check. The race organizers led Bolt away for testing and took Mr. Allen and me into the head office. When I stepped inside, my heart nearly stopped. There was Mrs. Allen, her face pale and frantic. It turned out that Judy had somehow managed to free her mom from that locked storage room. Mrs. Allen had rushed straight to the officials bringing along a stack of paperwork that proved all of her husband's corrupt and illegal activity. The mask completely fell off Mr. Allen's face then. He glared at me with pure hatred and screamed that he had been forced to raise me without getting anything in return because of his wife. He looked at her with such spite before he suddenly lost control and charged right at me. He looked like he wanted to hurt me, but Mrs. Allen didn't hesitate. She jumped in front of me to shield my body and pushed him away. One of the race organizers quickly stepped in and restrained him before he could try anything else. I was shaking, but then I heard Mrs. Allen growls at him, telling him not to dare lay a finger on her daughter. I just stood there completely frozen. I couldn't understand why she had called me that. I stammered out the word daughter as a question, my head spinning with confusion. Mrs. Allen turned to look at me. Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out a trembling hand to gently stroke my hair. She called me sweetie and begged me to give her a chance to explain everything. We went outside to a quiet bench on the campus of the headquarters to process everything. I sat there with a warm cup of coffee. I stared at the ground while the woman I had thought hated me sat by my side with Judy on the other. Then she started to tell me the real story. It turns out that she really is my biological mother. I could hardly believe it. She explained that after my birth father passed away, she was in a very vulnerable place and fell for the fake charm and lies of Allen. But as soon as they were married, he showed his true colors and heartlessly forced us apart. That was the reason she could only ever send money to our farm in secret, using his name. She told me that she recognized me the very second I arrived at the mansion. She stayed quiet because she knew he had only brought me there to get his hands on Bolt, hoping to use my horse to win some shady bet. She was terrified that if I knew the truth and tried to fight back, he would hurt me. With tears in her eyes, she told me how sorry she was for everything, especially these past few months. She said it was incredibly painful for her to treat her own daughter so badly, but it was the only way to push me away from that house and keep me safe. She didn't want me to end up in danger like my real father did when he worked for that man. As she begged for my forgiveness, tears just kept rolling down my cheek. All this time, I thought I was alone, but I actually had a mother watching over me and protecting me from the shadow. She pulled me into a warm hug. I called her mom as I hugged her back with everything I had. She told me over and over how much she loved and missed me. I looked up at her through my tears. I smiled and forgave her. I told her I was so happy to have her back in my life. Then I turned to Judy and told her she was the best sister I could ever wish for too. As I sat there between my mom and Judy, I realized that the greatest prize I had ever won wasn't a trophy or a check, but the family I thought I'd lost forever. No matter how fast we run or how many hurdles we face, the love that protects us always finds its way back home.